And hello there, Dental Nachos. Terry Brock here, and welcome to another edition of Talkin' Tech Tips with Terry. That would be me. Tuesday, that's today, at 2. And hey, that's right about now. So hey, we're looking forward to talking to you today about something really important that I'm working with, and a lot of people are, you might be. It's podcasting. Now, there's two sides of podcasting. We're going to touch on both of those today. One would be the part that you are listening to and making your life better because of podcast. Podcast is a way for you to send out the message or listen to it. Sending out also is the other side. But to listen to the podcast, to be able to hear the inflection in the voice, to be able to understand what it's there. It really goes back to one of the ancient forms of people communicating, people talking to each other with their voice, using that, and maybe sitting there listening to two other people who are talking about something that's really important, and you get a chance to just be maybe a fly on the wall. Well, that's what podcasting is about. It's not only all the fancy equipment that we have, and we can talk a little bit about that, but what it is, it's a matter of you being able to connect with people, to be able to do the kind of things that you want to do by listening to what's happening, listening to them and finding out their style and what it is that they want to do and how they're doing it. You get a chance to hear people live and direct with that. And so I think podcasting is great. Matter of fact, in the comments below, wherever you're getting this, by all means, we want to hear from you. Let us know if you're listening to a podcast, if you're doing one, if you're putting out a podcast and producing that, let us know in the comments. And if you're catching this on recording, which I know many people will, you'll be able to also leave a comment there. So let us know what you think about that. So I see that podcasting is good for listening and learning. You can learn from a variety of topics. Almost any topic you can think of today is available, and usually for no cost. So that is wonderful. It's a wonderful time to be alive, to be able to hear that in different languages too, not just in one language. I think it's a real treat to see that happening. But then there's the other side too. Obviously, if we're going to listen to it, someone needs to produce that. Someone needed to produce the podcast, and that's what you can do now, easier than ever. We're able to do that and do a lot of different things with it. Dr. Paul Goodman, our chief nacho here, Dr. Nachos, we affectionately like to call him, is using a podcast. Matter of fact, he's working with one with Rob Montgomery, and they talk about legal issues specifically related to dentists and the dental community. Now think about that. From a marketing point of view, that is brilliant. It's tightly niched. It's something that is broad enough so that you're reaching enough people to make it worthwhile, but it's also narrow enough so that not everybody in the world is going to be interested in that, in the dentistry side and on the legal side. But they've got a lawyer, Rob Montgomery, and a dentist, Paul Goodman, being able to work on that together. And I think it's a real good idea to find out what you can do if you want to go into podcasting, that you can help others, you can meet the needs that they have, and help them to understand, hey, here's how we do these things. Here's what we can do to make that happen in the real way. So a lot of good things can happen with it. And what I want to do is show you some of the ways that you can use it when you're working with it. I've got my fancy schmancy notes here, ready to go here, because I want to make sure I stay on top of that. I really like the idea of podcasting because, as many people know, you can do it when you're multitasking. Many people will listen to podcasts when they're doing something else. I use it a lot when I'm here at home in the condo, getting some things done, making breakfast, making lunch, when I'm doing some cleanup. Actually, I love doing laundry. I can do laundry cleanup because I always get a chance to listen to some really good podcasts, some good audio that helps me to learn a lot and be able to move forward with that. So that's real helpful also. And here's another thing that's interesting about that. You get really intimate with the host. And you think, what do you mean you get really intimate? Well, you feel like you know that person. You might have think about this. If you listen to anyone particular on the radio for a long time, say consistently, maybe a radio talk show or someone that's on audio and you listen to them over and over, maybe National Public Radio has a lot of wonderful people. Do you see in your mind what that person looks like? Or at least what you think he or she looks like? Well, that happens usually. Our brains work that way. And I found it was interesting. When I was 17 years old, I got into radio. I was working on the radio at WUNN 1110 on the AM dial from Mason, or WUFN 96.7 on the FM dial from Albion, the voice of the Family Life Broadcasting System. And so I still remember that to today. And that was a long time ago. I was 17 years old when I was doing that. I was a junior in high school and really enjoyed it. I had great people there that really took care of me, put up with me with some of the orneriness that teenagers could go through and dish out. But I found people would come into the station and they would tell me that they feel like they know me already because they'd heard me on the radio so much. And they said, well, it's like you're part of the family. And I thought, really? That's kind of nice. And people see that when they hear your voice. Podcasting does that too. Think about how you can connect with people in a real way by using podcasting to get your message out. As a dentist, you might want to use that for community, or you might be able to do it on another topic and mention that you are a dentist, and that way you would be sponsoring a local community option. That could be really good. And when you think about it, a lot of the things that are done and said on video really could be done in audio so that we could listen to them, and we can listen to them at a different rate of speed as well. With video, you have a lot more complications in putting it together. It's much easier to do that with audio. And I'm talking about now on the consumption side. You can consume the audio easier. Like, for instance, we know you would not drive and watch video. At least you should not. Do not do that if you do. Watching video while you're driving, no. But listening to a good podcast, well, sure. I particularly sometimes like it when I get in the car, I will rent a car or something and maybe drive to Atlanta, which is about depending on where we're going, an 8, 9, 10-hour drive or so. Drive down to Miami, it's 4 hours or so. Over to Tampa, it's about an hour and a half or so, depending on where we're going and what we're doing. But that's a nice time to listen to some good education and get something in your mind that is really, really worthwhile. So I think that using the podcast for that is also very good. Sometimes it's even better than text, because with text, it's good. And I love reading. I read a lot of text and want to read even more. But sometimes audio is even better, particularly when you want to hear inflections in tone. I often say in my classes, I'll say, well, let's suppose John out here in the audience is a friend of mine, and John and I know each other real well. I could send him text that says, John, you looked really good today. That's the text. I could send that to him. Or if I said it, and let's say John and I are good friends, and I want to joke with him a little bit, and I go, John, you looked really good today. You know I mean the exact opposite of what I'm saying. Why? The inflection, the intonation in my voice. All of this really matters and counts. And with a podcast, you have that ability to use that theater of the mind. You can do a lot with the audio, with sound effects and other elements that you can bring in there that can be far beyond what you would do with video, because it could be much more expensive with video. So I think it's really good in that. And another thing that you think about, people really like audio. We're seeing the marketplace say that. Raise your hand if you have heard of or listened to Clubhouse. Okay, yeah, I have. It's a wonderful little place where you get all kinds of conversations on many different topics. Just look at the popularity of that. It's because people realize they can come into a room, listen to somebody really smart, really important, really kind, and we can hear what they're saying. We can also hear other people and go, I don't care for that, and I can go over to another room and move around a little bit that way. Well, we're seeing other platforms coming about as well that are using that same kind of social media audio that we're seeing from Clubhouse. Really, really nice on that. I did an interview with Larry Roberts on that once. He's an expert on audio and Clubhouse particularly. And he talked about the benefits of it, how people are using this now. So audio is really good. I would encourage you to start listening to some podcasts. I have a number that I listen to that I find are particularly good, and they are really, really handy. As a matter of fact, I get a chance to hear a lot of them from different times and see that as well. And here we've got a nice comment from Bob Pick. Bob, awesome as always. Well, Bob, thank you, sir. And you are as well. Appreciate you and hope you're doing well up there in Chicagoland, that life is treating you very well, sir. And so a lot of good things happening with podcasting, and I encourage you, if you're not using one, get into it. One of the tools that I'm using for that I found really particularly good for me, I like, is the Google Podcast tool. It's a device that you can use. You just load it on your smartphone. Works on both Android and over on Apple, on the iOS. And you can listen to it. I like the way that it gives me a good display of them. I can increase the volume from 0 up to 2 minutes, I think it is. I'd like it to be able to go up to 3 or 4 minutes, because sometimes I can do that, but it gives us that ability, and then it remembers when you listen to something that you can program it so that it goes off the list of others that you have. So I think that is a good one. There are several others. Podcast Addict is a good one for the Android side. Over on the iOS side, I've listened to some on there with my iPhone, and I've been able to enjoy some of the different tools that are available. So get in there and play with that. Now I want to shift over a little bit here to the production side, so that if you are thinking about producing one, here's some of the things you want to be aware of. First of all, it's going to be a lot easier to produce that than it is video. You can put out a podcast. You don't have to worry about dressing up and combing your hair. That's particularly important for me. I don't want to have to comb my hair. It takes a long time. And when you want to send out that message real quickly, you can do it on audio. I often will do things on my podcast, and sometimes we'll sit down and I will just get an idea. I take a pen and paper, often do a mind map, and just put down the bullets of what I want to cover. And then I go over to Google Docs. And on Google Docs, I'll use their voice typing capability, which is really good. And I will use voice typing and just talk into it, do a brain dump into it. Then I go back, edit those words, and then I can use those words to create a podcast very easily, very quickly. And sounds pretty good too when you can have the words right there that you're going to say, and then I just scroll those on my computer screen as I'm reading them, and it works very nicely. So it is easy to do. It's also very fast. You can set that up. Oh, I'm hearing some audio back here from my Alexa as well. And I can set that up with the audio on my system, and it gives me the ability to record it pretty quickly. I'm going to show you a tool that I use for that also. Another tool, of course, we can use is Zoom. Zoom is very good for podcasts. Obviously, you can record it. Obviously, you can also have the video. But by the way, that's something else you might think about. What you can do is you could create content that might be, let's say it's an interview. You've got an interview where you're interviewing guest expert, and guest expert knows a lot about important topic. So you interview guest expert on that. And you could put up some graphics, you could do a lot there, but often what you can do is take the audio that comes with Zoom. They give you an M4A audio file. You can take that and put it directly into a podcast. Voila, you've got video and audio. Some people prefer to learn with video. Some prefer to learn with audio. Some prefer to learn with text. Some like a combination. Guess what? You can do all three. I show a lot of my clients how to do that exact type of thing, very inexpensively too. They can put this together, create the audio, the video, and text quickly. So this is something that you ought to consider if you have any kind of message you want to send out to people. Audio is very important. Now, where it would not work and where I don't use audio is when I'm doing a video on something that is very visually rich, visually oriented. Like for instance, if there's when there's a new release of Zoom, I like to usually cover those. Put out a special video on that over on my YouTube channel. Because people are using Zoom. If there's some features that I think are particularly important, I want to highlight those and let people see what's available. So video is very important there. But if that were on a podcast, it's a lot more difficult to follow. Because often when I'll say things like, oh, you see that red button there in the upper right corner? Click on that. Notice the drop-down menu that comes there? That third, fourth one down from the top. Notice what that is. Those are all visual cues. And if you're hearing just the audio of that, it's not as good. Where audio does particularly well is if you have, say, a lecture that had no notes, or not no notes, but no graphics to use, no visuals per se. Now, you can do a lot with that. Think about the content you create. Sometimes you will want to use video. Sometimes you really need video. Like for instance, if I were doing training, I am not a dentist, but if I were a dentist and let's say I was an expert on implants or mold, putting up crowns, prepping crowns, things like that, something that I do not do at all, but that would be very visual. Dentistry is a very visual profession. You want still pictures. We use them a lot. Video at times could be very helpful as well. But this is where video could be better just depending on the topic. However, I know Dr. Paul Goodman does a lot of programs where he talks about not only implants and crowns and things like that. And he brings in other experts who talk about it, but he'll also talk about ways that you can connect with and communicate with patients, conversations to have. Well, that's ideal for a podcast where you have only the spoken word. And so I would encourage you to use both of those as well. So, and really the combination is the key. Think about how you can deliver your message in a rich combination so that there's a place for video and a place for audio. And the podcast will be good for that. Now, let me show you a couple of tools that I am using right now. I got geared up here. I want to show you. I'm going to click here, go over to my screen. And before I get to that one, I'm going to come over here to the one. This is one you want to write down. It's called Auphonic. And oh, wait a minute. It's not coming up on your screen. Wait a minute. Just a moment here. Going to change this over here, and I'm going to tell it to go over to the Brave browser. There we go. And we're looking at the tool. This is one you want to write down. It's called Auphonic from Auphonic Productions. You go to Auphonic, 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 and there's a free version that you can get. What it does is it takes your audio and it cleans it up. If there's some noise in the background, say a constant noise, it can take that and either eliminate it or at least mitigate it. It can often eliminate and get rid of the noises. Also, it's really good for leveling out the sound. For instance, on an interview, you might interview someone and one voice is louder than another one. What you would want to do there is to equalize that. They have that built in through AI on Auphonic. Now, the way they get paid is they will let you do it. They give you so much free every month. And I think it's like an hour you get free. And if you do more than that, then you pay real reasonable charge. I found that I gave them, I think it was $11 a while back. And they have continued to refill every month up to the point that I have. So I've got 5 hours, 42 minutes right now available. I usually use maybe an hour at most every month in the work that I do. Sometimes I might go over that a little bit, but if I do, it's fine. These guys are really good. I highly recommend that you look into Auphonic.com, and that's, again, Auphonic. And by the way, you notice what I did there? I spelled it out. That's something you want to do on both audio and video. If you've got a phone number, you make sure you say it very slowly, but when you're having letters, when you're talking about a name, by all means, spell it out, because there's a lot of people who are listening might not have English as their native language if you're using English, or if you're speaking Spanish, spell it out. And some of us that are learning Spanish right here, my Spanish is not real good at all, but I'm working on it, trying to get it better all the time. And when someone can spell it out and speak more slowly and carefully, I'm more likely to understand what they're saying. So make sure you spell it out. But Auphonic does a good job of that. I'm going to show you down here what they do. They have the ability for you to put these in, and you can put in your files. These are files that I put in there, and it lets you adjust and change what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Like, for instance, if I was going to start a production here, let me click on this right here. I'll click on the Start Production, and I'm not going to put a file in right now, but this is how you do it. You'll see you can choose the file right there. Then down here, you can figure out the format and the bit rate for that. And by the way, I found out from Dave Jackson, a master at training people on podcasting, that you want to put this in on certain programs like Libsyn. I'm going to talk about in a minute. Libsyn, which is a place that does the propagation and sends out your messages. 64 kilobits per second is the ideal. If you're only using spoken word voice, that works fine, and it minimizes the charges that you would have. And you see I'll have the file name come out as an MP3. That's usually what I like. By the way, with Auphonic, they will take WAV files. You can put in MP3 files to clean them up a little bit. You can put in an MP4 file or an MOV file. So yes, you can take the audio from your video, run it through Auphonic, and clean it up. Then put it back in as a specific way of using it. So this has some really nice capabilities here. Auphonic is one I recommend. Now, another one that I recommend is over here. This is one I'm using right now for my podcast when I'm sending out podcasts. It's called Libsyn, Libsyn, and that's libsyn.com. And you can put in the content, like I click here to add a new episode. It would give me the ability, you'll see some of the episodes I've put in here already right there. These are contents, or if I want to get a new one, then I can click on that, move it around, and get a chance to do that. I can have my destination be to someplace new. I can look at monetizing it by advertising or charge a premium if I want. And I also get some stats here and storage, and then I have scheduling, which I get a chance to schedule it. So I create the podcast. This is what I use probably 99% of the time. I'll create a podcast, make sure everything's looking good, and then I schedule it to go out at some point in the future. because it's good to be consistent. My podcasts consistently go out on Friday. On a Friday, they go out at 12 noon U.S. Eastern Time. I just found that has worked well for me. Now, if I add more times, I would get a regular time, but I always want to have that anchor rock position for me. Podcast goes out, scheduled to go out at 12 noon U.S. Eastern Time on a Friday. And so it's there and available. That means it's scheduled to go out. Sometimes there might be a technical glitch or a little hiccup, and it might go out a little bit later. But usually with Libsyn, they've done a really good job maintaining it. These folks really know their business. They have been at it long enough. They know what can go right, what can go wrong, how to fix what can go wrong, how to make it easier all the way through, and they do a great job with that. Now, there's another thing you can do with this. You can also use a tool that's available for doing the editing in your audio. There's one that is free, and the free one I found is pretty incredible what it does. I'm going to switch over here to that by going over here to Audacity. Audacity is a free, highly professional audio editing tool. And what it does is it gives you the ability to, well, create your audio and make it just really sparkle. Here I am right now on this. I'm going to click up here on this red button, and the red button, as you can imagine, is record. I am now recording in Audacity, and the sound that you're hearing is my voice coming through live right now, but you'll notice the waveform that appears is what happens within Audacity. So I stop it there, and it gives me the ability to see what that's like. I can play it back. I can cut and edit, say, okay, I'm going to take that part right there and listen to it, or I could cut it out, move it. I can enhance it. It gives me the ability to make it louder, make it softer. It gives me the ability to eliminate noises. Audacity is really a rich tool for you, and it's free. It's open source. So I would recommend look into Audacity as a tool that's going to help you to do the kinds of things you need to do with podcasting. So that about wraps it up for this episode here. But what we're going to do is listen to you. If you've got a comment or you've got something, some way that you're using podcasting or would like to, or you got a question, by all means, let us know here at Dental Nachos, because we are here to help you. We are here to help you get the answers that are going to be best for you and are going to help you to achieve the goals that you want when you're working with not only the podcasting, that's something that I'm doing here particularly, but whoops, I'm playing another little video back here and we want to stop that. There we are. But what we want to do is we want to help you on these in many different ways. And we got to get, oh, this is fun when I'm being interrupted by myself. There we are. My self is interrupting me. I jumped over there when I was clicking a button here and jumped back in there to the video that is playing. So always fun when that happens. By the way, I also like to keep it live here, keep it real when we're doing live video. Live video is like that. Because when something would go wrong or there's an oh whoops, you can't go back and erase live. It's there. Now, once it becomes a recording, it goes there. You can. Anyway, think about podcasting. It is a great little tool. I highly recommend you look into it, see what's available for you, and if it's right for you, get into it. I'm Terry Brock, and on behalf of the Dental Nachos team, thank you very much for joining.